Most people rely on dishwashers, but the Amish get spotless results without using a single ounce of electricity. Their simple setup uses heat, rhythm, and smart hand-washing techniques that put modern kitchens to shame. It's a method that's faster, cleaner, and surprisingly efficient, and once you learn it, you'll never look at washing dishes the same way again. The Amish don't have electric water heaters, but their dishwater gets just as hot as yours does, maybe even hotter. They heat it on wood stoves or propane burners that stay lit throughout the day anyway because they're cooking meals, baking bread, or keeping the house warm. There's no waiting around for water to heat up like you might with an electric kettle that takes 5 minutes just to boil enough for tea. Their system works because the stove is already doing its job and the water is just another task it handles without complaint. Most Amish homes keep a dedicated kettle specifically for dishwashing. It's not fancy, usually just a large metal kettle that sits on the back burner where it stays warm all day long. This kettle doesn't get used for making coffee or cooking soup. It's strictly for dishes, and that matters because nobody wants their dinner plates tasting like yesterday's chicken broth. The kettle holds enough water to wash a full sink of dishes without needing a refill, which saves time and keeps the process moving smoothly. Water temperature is something the Amish take seriously when it comes to washing dishes. They know that hot water, somewhere between 110 to 140 degrees Fahrenheit, is what cuts through grease and kills bacteria. Cold water just moves the grease around and makes everything feel slimy. Some people think doing dishes is therapeutic, but those people clearly haven't tried scrubbing dried oatmeal off a bowl with lukewarm water. The Amish don't have that problem because their water comes off the stove hot enough to need a moment before you can stick your hands in it. Families don't rush the heating process either. They know that hot water is half the cleaning process, so they let the kettle sit on the stove until it's properly heated. Rushing it means cooler water, which means dishes don't come out as clean, and then you're stuck rewashing things or dealing with that gross film that stays on glasses. Nobody wants that. The Amish understand that patience at the start saves frustration later, and that's a lesson that applies to more than just dishwashing. Wood stoves hold heat differently than electric stoves. They radiate warmth for hours after the fire dies down, which means water stays hot longer without needing constant attention. Propane burners work similarly, but give more control over temperature if needed. Either way, the Amish have figured out how to keep water at the right temperature without using a single watt of electricity. It's efficient, it's reliable, and it's been working for generations without needing an instruction manual or a customer service hotline. The beauty of this system is its simplicity. There are no thermostats to break, no heating elements to burn out, and no electric bills climbing higher every month because someone left the water heater running. They say necessity is the mother of invention, but in this case, necessity just reminded everyone that fire plus water equals hot water. No batteries required. Hot water alone isn't enough, though. What happens next makes all the difference. But having hot water is only step one. The real efficiency comes from how they use it. Instead of running hot water constantly like most modern kitchens do, the Amish use a 2-basin sink system that makes washing dishes surprisingly efficient. One basin holds hot soapy water for washing, and the other holds clear rinse water. This setup eliminates the need for a faucet running non-stop, which saves water and makes the whole process faster once you get the rhythm down. The method isn't complicated, but it requires a bit of organization that most people today don't think about because they just turn on the tap whenever they need water. Soapy dishes never get rinsed under a running tap in an Amish kitchen. Everything gets dipped into the rinse basin instead. You wash the dish in the soapy water, scrub off whatever needs scrubbing, then dunk it straight into the rinse water to get the soap off. No spray nozzle, no fancy faucet with multiple settings, just 2 basins doing all the work. It sounds almost too simple, but it works incredibly well once you stop expecting water to magically appear every time you twist a handle. Some Amish kitchens have oversized handmade sinks specifically designed for this 2-basin method. These sinks are deeper and wider than standard sinks because they need to hold more dishes at once. A typical family dinner might involve plates, bowls, cups, silverware, serving dishes, pots, and pans, and all of that has to fit into 2 basins without creating a chaotic mess. If you think your kitchen sink is full after one meal, try fitting 3 meals worth of dishes into 2 basins and still having room to actually wash them. The larger sinks make it possible to keep everything organized and moving through the washing process without constant reshuffling. The rinse water doesn't stay clean forever, obviously. After a certain number of dishes pass through it, the water gets cloudy with soap residue and needs to be swapped out for fresh water. The Amish don't have a specific rule for when to change it, because they can just tell by looking if the rinse water looks more like dishwater than rinse water, it's time for a refresh. This isn't wasteful because the old rinse water can be reused for other cleaning tasks, which we'll get to later. Nothing goes to waste when you're managing resources without electricity backing you up. This two-basin system also teaches patience and planning. You can't just toss dishes into the sink randomly and expect things to go smoothly. Plates get washed first because they're easiest, then bowls, then cups, then silverware, and finally pots and pans because they're the messiest washing pans. First is like eating dessert before dinner. It sounds fun until you realize you've made everything harder for yourself. The Amish know the order matters, and they stick to it because it makes the whole process faster and less frustrating. Modern kitchens waste a shocking amount of water compared to this method. Letting a faucet run for even 5 minutes during dishwashing can use up to 25 gallons of water, depending on the flow rate. The two-basin method uses maybe 5 to 10 gallons total for an entire meal's worth of dishes. That's a massive difference, and it adds up over weeks and months. The Amish aren't trying to save water because of environmental concerns or water bills. They're doing it because it's practical, efficient, and makes sense when you're managing resources carefully. Of course, water isn't the only resource they handle differently. The soap they use isn't something you'll find at any store. The only product we'll ever promote on our channel is a book by Claude Davis, a veteran prepper, about 126 superfoods and preservation methods from crisis times like the Great Depression and wartime that are impossible to find elsewhere. We decided to promote his book because we are the last generation able to share these techniques and superfoods to our children or grandchildren. It would be a shame to see this information about highly nutritious foods and preservation methods to survive crises disappear. You can also find a book about herbal remedies from Nicole Apelian on their store. If you're watching this on TV, you can look up our channel, Frugal Solutions, on your phone or tablet and find the books by clicking the link in our channel description or any other video description. Many Amish families still make their own dish soap using lye, rainwater, and animal fats, which sounds like something out of a history book, but works better than you'd expect. Homemade soap cuts through grease extremely well, sometimes better than store-bought dish soap because the ingredients are simple and concentrated. There's no water added as filler, no fancy fragrances that don't actually clean anything, just pure soap that does exactly what it's supposed to do. The process of making soap isn't quick, but once it's done, a single batch can last months depending on how large the family is. Lye is the key ingredient that makes soap happen. It's a strong alkaline substance that reacts with fats to create soap through a chemical process called saponification. This isn't something you want to mess around with carelessly because lye can burn skin and damage eyes if handled improperly, but the Amish have been making soap for generations and know exactly how to do it safely. Once the soap is finished curing, there's no lye left in it because the chemical reaction uses it all up. What remains is just soap that's safe to use and incredibly effective at cutting grease. Rainwater is often used instead of tap water because it's softer and doesn't contain minerals that can interfere with the soap-making process. Hard water can leave residue in soap and make it less effective, so using rainwater ensures a better final product. The Amish collect rainwater in barrels, let it settle, then use it for soap making and other household tasks. Some people pay extra for filtered water to wash their dishes, while the Amish just wait for it to fall from the sky and then turn it into soap. It's free, it's clean enough after settling, and it works perfectly for the task. Animal fats come from butchering livestock, which is a regular part of Amish life. Nothing goes to waste when an animal is processed for food. The meat feeds the family, the bones make broth, the hide might be tanned for leather, and the fat gets rendered down for soap. Making beef tallow and pork lard both make excellent soap because they have the right fat composition to create a hard, long-lasting bar that doesn't dissolve too quickly in water. Some families add essential oils from garden herbs like lavender, mint, or rosemary for scent, but that's optional. The soap works just fine without it. Bars of soap are grated or shaved before being used for dishwashing because solid bars don't dissolve fast enough in wash water. A few tablespoons of grated soap in hot water creates plenty of suds for washing a full sink of dishes. The soap is so concentrated that a little goes a long way, which means one bar can last weeks even with daily dishwashing. Store-bought liquid dish soap runs out faster because it's mostly water, and you end up using more of it than you actually need. Homemade soap doesn't have that problem. The environmental impact of homemade soap is essentially zero. There are no plastic bottles to throw away, no synthetic chemicals washing down the drain into water systems, and no carbon emissions from factories producing and shipping the product. The Amish aren't making soap because they're worried about their carbon footprint. They're doing it because it's practical, it saves money, and it works. Making your own soap from scratch might sound extreme until you realize you're paying $5 for a bottle that's mostly water and a label. But the side effect is that their dishwashing routine has almost no environmental impact compared to modern methods that rely on mass-produced detergents packaged in plastic and shipped across the country. Once the dishes are washed, there's still the matter of getting them dry. The Amish use large wooden drying racks that are built to handle a full day's worth of dishes without needing to be emptied constantly. These racks aren't the flimsy metal ones you find in most modern kitchens that tip over if you put too many plates on them. They're solid, handmade, and designed to drain water naturally without any electric drying needed. Air does all the work, and it does it surprisingly well when the rack is built correctly and positioned near a window or vent where airflow is good. Most of these racks are handmade by the men of the family or by local craftsmen who know exactly what design works best. They're usually made from hardwoods like oak or maple because those woods resist warping from constant exposure to water. The racks have slats positioned at an angle so water runs off the dishes and drips into a tray below instead of pooling around the bases of cups and bowls. You'd think gravity would be enough to dry dishes, but apparently it needs a little help from good carpentry. The design matters because poorly made racks leave water sitting on dishes, which defeats the entire purpose. Some Amish homes have ceiling-mounted racks that pull down during meal cleanup and then get raised back up out of the way once dishes are dry. This saves counter space, which is valuable in kitchens that don't have endless square footage like modern suburban homes. The pulley system is simple but effective, usually just a rope and a few hooks. When dishes are done drying, someone pulls the rack back up toward the ceiling where it stays until the next meal. It's efficient, it's practical, and it keeps the kitchen from feeling cluttered with dish racks sitting out all the time. The capacity of these racks is impressive. A well-designed Amish dish rack can hold 3 meals worth of dishes if needed, which is useful after church gatherings or family events when there's more dishwashing than usual. Plates stack vertically in slots, cups hang upside down on pegs, silverware sits in a separate basket, and serving dishes lean against the back rail. Everything has its spot, which makes unloading faster because you're not digging through a pile trying to figure out where things go. Organization matters when you're washing dishes by hand for a family of 8 or 10 people. These racks last for decades because they're built well and maintained properly. Wood needs occasional oiling to keep it from drying out and cracking, but that's about it for maintenance. There are no moving parts to break, no plastic pieces that snap off, and no rust to deal with like you get with cheap metal racks. A good dish rack should outlast most marriages, and Amish dish racks take that challenge seriously. They're built to be used daily for years without needing replacement, which is a stark contrast to modern kitchen tools that seem designed to break just after the warranty expires, but the racks themselves are only part of why the drying process works so well. Cast iron cookware gets special treatment in Amish kitchens because it requires a completely different cleaning method than regular dishes. The Amish never wash cast iron with soap unless absolutely necessary, which goes against what most modern cooks do. Soap strips away the seasoning on cast iron, that black patina that builds up over time and makes the pan naturally non-stick. Without that seasoning, cast iron rusts quickly and food sticks to it like glue. The Amish know this because their cast iron pans have been passed down through generations, and they've learned exactly how to keep them in perfect condition. Instead of soap and water, cast iron pans get wiped clean while they're still warm. Any stuck-on food gets scraped off with a metal spatula or a stiff brush. Then the pan gets rinsed with hot water. That's it. No scrubbing with dish soap, no soaking in the sink, just a quick rinse and wipe. For stubborn spots that won't come off easily, a paste made from coarse salt and a tiny bit of water works as an abrasive without damaging the seasoning. The salt scrubs away the residue, then gets rinsed out, leaving the pan clean but still properly seasoned. After rinsing, the pan goes straight onto the wood stove to dry. This is where the magic happens. The heat from the stove doesn't just dry the pan, it actually sterilizes it. Bacteria can't survive temperatures above 160 degrees Fahrenheit, and a cast iron pan sitting on a hot wood stove easily reaches 300 degrees or more. Some people use dishwashers to sanitize their cookware, while the Amish just put their pans where fire happens. The combination of high heat and complete dryness means the pan is cleaner than if it had been washed with soap and left to air dry. Once the pan is dry and still warm, a thin layer of fat or oil gets rubbed onto the cooking surface. This maintains the seasoning and prevents rust from forming. The Amish use whatever fat they have on hand, usually lard or beef tallow from their own livestock. A paper towel or clean rag works fine for spreading it around. The whole process from cooking to cleaning to reseasoning takes maybe 5 minutes, which is faster than washing a pan with soap and waiting for it to dry completely. This method keeps cast iron cookware lasting for generations, literally. Many Amish families use pans that are 50 or 100 years old, and they work better than brand new pans because the seasoning has had decades to build up. Modern nonstick pans need replacing every few years because the coating wears off or gets scratched. Cast iron never wears out if you treat it right. It just gets better with age, developing a smoother cooking surface and more reliable nonstick properties over time. There's also something efficient about having cookware that serves multiple purposes. The wood stove cooks the food, then cleans and sterilizes the pan afterward. No separate dishwashing step needed, no extra tools required, just the stove doing what it does naturally. Cast iron pans are like the Swiss Army knives of cookware, except heavier and less likely to fit in your pocket. The Amish have figured out that the simplest cleaning method is often the most effective one, especially when you've got a heat source that's already running anyway. But not everything in the kitchen gets treated as carefully as cast iron. Water doesn't get thrown out immediately after washing dishes in an Amish household. Once the dishwater cools down, it gets reused for cleaning floors, scrubbing porches, or washing outdoor furniture. Nothing goes to waste when you're hauling water by hand or heating it on a stove that requires chopping wood or buying propane. The Amish have a practical understanding of resource management that comes from necessity rather than environmental activism. Every gallon of water has served its purpose for washing dishes, but it still has plenty of cleaning power left for other jobs. Soapy dishwater works surprisingly well for mopping floors. The soap is already diluted to the right concentration, and any grease that came off the dishes doesn't matter when you're cleaning a floor. In fact, the grease can help condition wood floors and keep them from drying out. Amish homes often have wide plank wooden floors that need regular cleaning, and using cool dishwater for this task saves the effort of heating fresh water just for mopping. The floors get clean, the water gets used twice, and nobody has to make an extra trip to the well or pump. Some households use leftover dishwater for washing barn tools, livestock buckets, or gardening equipment. These items don't need spotless cleaning like dishes do, so slightly used soapy water works perfectly fine. A bucket that held chicken feed or a shovel covered in garden dirt doesn't care if the water has been used before. Reusing dishwater for farm tools is like wearing your work clothes 2 days in a row. Nobody's going to notice, and you've saved yourself some effort. The Amish understand that different cleaning jobs require different standards, and adjusting those standards saves significant amounts of water over time. This practice lowers water usage significantly across the community. If a family washes dishes 3 times a day and reuses the water each time for a second cleaning task, that's 3 gallons of water saved daily, or roughly 1,000 gallons per year. Multiply that across an entire Amish community of 50 or 100 families, and the water savings become substantial. Modern households typically use between 80 to 100 gallons of water per person per day. The Amish use closer to 20 to 30 gallons per person because they reuse water whenever possible and don't have toilets, showers, or washing machines that constantly consume fresh water. There's also a practical limit to how many times water can be reused. Dishwater works fine for a second cleaning task, but by the third use, it's too dirty to be effective. The Amish recognize this and don't try to stretch water beyond its useful point. Once water has served two purposes, it gets dumped in the garden where it can water plants and add a bit of organic matter to the soil. Even the final disposal serves a function. Nothing gets wasted, but nothing gets overused to the point of ineffectiveness either. The environmental impact of this practice is worth noting even though the Amish aren't motivated by environmentalism. Reusing water reduces strain on wells and aquifers, decreases the amount of wastewater entering septic systems, and cuts down on the energy needed to heat fresh water. For every task, modern water treatment systems use enormous amounts of electricity to pump, treat, and distribute water to homes. The Amish skip all of that by just using the same water twice, which is either brilliant or obvious depending on how you look at it. Either way, it works. Managing dishes for just one family is straightforward enough, but some occasions require much more. Church days in Amish communities can mean washing 150 or more dishes entirely by hand, which sounds overwhelming until you see how efficiently they handle it. When the Amish host church services, which rotate between different families' homes, the hosting family feeds everyone after the service. That's easily 30 to 50 people sitting down for a meal, and each person uses multiple dishes. Plates, bowls, cups, silverware, and serving platters all need washing, and there's no industrial dishwasher hidden in the back to handle the load. Multiple women rotate through different jobs to keep the process moving smoothly. One person washes in the soapy basin, another rinses in the clear water basin, a third person manages the drying racks and makes sure they don't overflow, and a fourth organizes the clean dishes so they can be put away quickly. This assembly line approach means nobody gets stuck doing the same task for an hour straight, which would be exhausting and boring. Rotating jobs keeps everyone fresh and prevents bottlenecks from forming when one person gets tired or needs a break. Extra basins and kettles get added to the washing area, so there's always hot water ready and plenty of space for dishes to move through the system. Some families set up washing stations in multiple locations, with one station handling plates and bowls while another handles cups and silverware. Washing 150 dishes sounds terrible until you realize it's just washing 15 dishes 10 times, which somehow sounds more manageable. Breaking the job into smaller segments and assigning different people to different segments makes the whole process feel less daunting. The speed is genuinely impressive once the system gets going. A full table's worth of dishes, maybe 30 or 40 pieces, can be completely washed, rinsed, dried, and put away in under 20 minutes when 4 people are working together efficiently. That's faster than most modern dishwashers, which typically take 90 minutes to 2 hours for a full cycle. The difference is that human hands working in coordination can move much faster than a machine cycling through preset programs. Plus, there's no waiting for the machine to fill, heat water, wash, rinse, and dry. The work just flows continuously until it's done. There's a social aspect to large-scale dishwashing that makes it less of a chore and more of a community activity. Women chat while they work, catching up on news and sharing stories. Younger girls help out and learn the system by watching the older women work. It's not just about getting dishes clean, it's about spending time together and teaching the next generation how to manage large tasks efficiently. The work becomes almost secondary to the socializing, which makes the time pass quickly and keeps the mood light even when there's a mountain of dishes waiting. After everyone pitches in, the cleanup that would take one person 3 or 4 hours gets done in 45 minutes or less. This collective effort model works because everyone understands that the next time church services rotate to a different home, they'll be the ones needing help with the dishes. It's a community investment that pays returns every few weeks when it's your turn to host. The Amish have figured out that some jobs are simply too big for one person, but become manageable when shared among many. Efficiency matters just as much before the washing even starts. Dirty dishes don't just get piled randomly in an Amish kitchen. Instead of stacking everything together and creating a chaotic mess, they use what's called a rotation bowl to organize dishes before washing even begins. This is typically a large wooden or metal bowl that sits near the eating area where people can scrape and sort their dishes immediately after finishing a meal. The system is simple, but makes a huge difference in how quickly the actual washing goes. Plates go in one section, cups in another, silverware in a third, and bowls in a fourth. Some families use multiple bowls instead of dividing one large bowl into sections, which accomplishes the same goal. The point is that by the time dishes reach the washing basin, they're already organized by type. This means the person washing doesn't have to dig through a pile trying to find all the forks or all the plates.